Okay, let's get started. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the first lesson of this course titled Journey of the Soul. This is when JLI, when JLI did this course 5-6 years ago. There were 30,000 people who attended. It was JLI's most popular course, so that's why they decided to redo it again today. Again, you know what? One more time, I'm gonna put on the chat again, just in case. I want everybody to have this PDF, so I figured out how to do it. Okay, on the chat box again is the PDF that we're using for today's class. So just log on to that and use it while we talk about today's lesson. So Peter, welcome as well. Efrat, Emily, David, Barbara, Ira, everybody who's here. Welcome, welcome. We should have 2 more people joining, but as they join, we'll just add them, no problem.
I'm sorry, Rabbi Vigler, I don't see the PDF.
Okay, I'm going to put it one more time. I did email to everybody, but I'm going to put it again.
Oh, okay, fine. Sorry,
but
sorry.
I'm putting it again on the chat. Do you see it on the chat? I just put it again there. You should see it now again.
Maybe it's just me. If it was emailed, that's perfect too. It's fine. Thank you.
Okay, fine. But do you see the chat? I'm chatting it on the chat.
It's there.
Okay.
It's there. Just open up the chat in the Zoom. Okay. So
Okay.
that's where it is. And that's where we started. Okay, so let's just get started right away. Anatophobia. Oh, that's how you pronounce the word. Anatophobia. The fear of death, especially during COVID-19. People are afraid of death. Let's talk about it. Let's demystify it. There's 6 lessons in this course. And again, the purpose is to just talk about the subject, make it a little bit more, real. But let me start off with my personal experience. I had my grandfather was living in my house when I was a teenager. He lived for the last 5 or 6 years in my house. And when I came back from yeshiva, I was about 16 years old, 17, 16. And literally I came, and that morning he passed away. And I remember the Chevra Kadisha were taking his body, transporting his body into the van. And they took him away. And one moment he was there, like the last 5-6 years, like he was there. And the next moment he was gone. And it was extremely difficult for me personally to process this and get on with this. I think the only way I was able to do it is to numb the pain, is to ignore it. It's like a state of denial. And I remember the same thing happened when a very close and dear friend of mine passed away, a classmate of mine, and we went to his funeral. And I remember the first time, like putting him in the ground was like it was like, this is my friend, this is my classmate, and the only way for me to deal with it was a sense of denial. So we all have different ways of dealing with pain and tragedy, and especially now with COVID-19, the fear of death is brought out to the front. Let's talk about the Jewish approach to all this. Let's see how we deal with this. So I'm going to start by sharing the screen. I'm going to start sharing the screen. 1 second, I just got to figure out. Hold on, I'll get there. Hold on. Nope, not that. 1 second. Hold on, I'm so sorry. I'm learning the Zoom thing. Nope, not that. 1 second. Hold on. No one. Hold on. My JLI. There we go. 1 second. My JLI. Okay, here we go. So I'm gonna share the PowerPoint. You should be able to see it. So again, I'm following the student textbook that you should have in front of you. You should be as well over there. But here we go. Okay. So the course objectives: philosophical, emotional, and practical. The practical is, later on in the last few lessons of the course, just the practical. How do we prepare for death? How do we cope with a loved one who has, God forbid, passed away? The emotional aspect to it, and the philosophical. By the way, the philosophical is the easiest to deal with because you're not talking about pain that you feel. It's like talking about it, which is kind of much easier. So these are the course objectives, what we will be dealing with. Second, and that was that during this whole lesson 1. Here we go. Okay. So to start off, what feelings does the subject of death and mortality evoke in you? And there doesn't exist a human being who doesn't have the subject. We didn't think about it. We don't know about it. It evokes something inside of us. How do we deal with it is why this course has come out. So terror management theory, our awareness of death influences many elements of our lives. The COVID-19 pandemic has provided the perfect storm of fear and anxiety associated with death. This is what I was explaining before, and this is just an introduction to today's class. Okay, second. Okay, so the first thing we need to do to understand and to permeate and to get involved and to explain this Anatophobia situation, the first thing we need to do is to understand, who am I? Who am I? Who is the person who's afraid of death? Death is final. Throughout the course of our life, we experience highs and lows. We all know we've all experienced physical pain, emotional pain, frustration, but death is final. In other words, I could deal with a lack of business problems. I could deal maybe with even sickness and illness and try to resolve it. But death is final, and that's what makes it so hard to grapple with and deal with. It's the finality of the situation. Some people call it FOMO, fear of missing out, fear of life, and all that kind of thing. You should have the textbook in front of you. Okay, I think everybody has it. Everybody has the textbooks in front of you. Fear of death. So text number 1, I'm reading now the text in front of you. Text number 1, universal fear. Okay, so this is from this Irvin Yalom. Mortality has haunted us from the beginning of history. 4,000 years ago, the Babylonian hero Gilgamesh reflected on the death of his friend Enkidu with the words, "Thou hast become dark and cannot hear me. When I die, shall I not be like Enkidu? Sorrow enters my heart. I am afraid of death." And this guy Gilgamesh speaks for all of us. As he feared death, so do we all, each and every man, woman, and child. For some of us, the fear of death manifests only indirectly, either as generalized unrest or masqueraded as another psychological symptom. Other individuals experience an explicit and conscious stream of anxiety about death. And for some of us, the fear of death erupts into terror that negates all happiness and fulfillment. So a few decades ago, there was, a group of psychologists. They did this thing, and I'm going to put up on the screen. They advanced this theory called the terror management theory, which is essentially a theory about the effect of death on life. And it says that our awareness of death and our efforts to cope with this awareness are the impetus for a wide variety of seemingly unrelated human activities. But the bottom line is of this thing is I see it as a sense of denial. Okay. So the first question is, who am I? And I'm going to pull up what you have on your screens in front of you, but you should have figure 1.1 right in front of you. You have figure 1.1. Look at just at the statistics of death. And this was done September 16, 2020. You see that 11% are very afraid, 31% somewhat afraid. That means 42% are kind of afraid of death, right? You see that in front of you. 7% I don't know, right? 25% not at all afraid. 26% not very afraid at all. Okay, so who am I? Okay. What does Judaism say about death? By the way, Judaism has so much to say about this topic. It's actually crazy. But the first question is, what does Judaism consider death to be? And the answer is, death is not considered the end of life, but rather it's considered the beginning of a new phase of life. So if we think that death is a new phase of life, then and for us death is a finality, then we obviously don't understand what life is. Because what is life and who are we really? And again, I'm bringing up this question, who am I, is the key to resolving this question and this fear of death. Who am I? Who is Uriel Vigla? Who is Tzvi? Who am I? So look at text number 2 right in front of you in the books, in the PDF that you have. Okay, so it says over there, this is from Rabbi Chaim Vital. He's one of the authors of the Zohar. He was the student of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. And he says, the wise are aware that the human body is not the human being. When we speak of the human being, we are referring to the human's inner dimension. The body is merely a garment in which the soul is attired during its sojourn in this world. In other words, there are two parts. There's the body and there's the soul. The body is the one who experiences death. When a person passes away, yes, the body dies, but the soul lives on. And let me just share with you a meditation from Rabbi Shais Taub. A second to pull it up on the screen. Okay, I'm going to pull this up right over here. Gotcha. Okay. Here we go.
Hi, this is Rabbi Shais Taub. Welcome to a series of meditations for the course Journey of the Soul. The purpose of these meditations is going to be internalizing some of the deeper ideas that are a little bit difficult to grasp. And generally, we will try to do so by way of visualization, trying to picture symbols that represent some of the ideas and that we can focus on briefly so that we can begin to connect on a deeper level to these ideas. To begin with, the entire notion of life is a challenging concept because it is so intangible. We're used to relating to things, to that which we can see, to that which we can touch. And life is completely intangible. How do we begin to relate to that which is unseeable, untouchable? How do we envision, how do we see the unseeable? So if you will, I'll ask you to begin right now, however you're most comfortable doing so. Close your eyes, keep your eyes open. Envision a musical instrument, a physical object, let's say a piano, made of wood and wires, something you can look at with your physical eyes, you can touch it with your physical hands. It's a physical object. Now, the piano is merely a thing. A person comes over to the pianist sits down and begins playing a beautiful song. Now, this song stirs your soul. Try to hear it. Hear the music. Where is the song? Can you see it? Can you touch it? You can see and touch the piano. You can't see or touch the song. And now the song is over and the piano is standing there. If you'll open up the piano, will you find the song? Think now how everything in the world is matter and energy. The matter is the physical object that we see, the piano. The energy is the intangible, the song. We'll take a half a minute now to try to think of ourselves in these terms. Think of your body as the instrument, the physical object that can be seen, that can be touched. And think of the life you live as the song that is being played through the instrument. We'll take half a minute right now to see and hear the piano and the song, the body and the soul.
Okay, let me just go back to this again. Okay. Okay. By the way, anytime anybody has any questions, please stop me in the middle. But what we're trying to explain from here is there's something called the body and there's something called the soul. Okay, the body passes away. The body is gone. The soul lives on forever. But let's see where this comes from a Torah perspective. What is the source? Where do we know this from the Torah? Okay, not my body, not my knowledge, intellect, emotions, desires. I am my soul. Who am I? Let's just look at this for a second. Okay, so if you see the PDF in front of you, source number 3, text number 3 is where God is talking about the creation of the world, right? You should all have that. I emailed it to you before the lesson, and I also shared it on the screen here, so you should all have it. If anybody doesn't have it, I'm going to actually just chat it one more time here. So it's on the chat right now. I just put it again. So you have the lesson in the chat box of the Zoom. Okay, so text number 3a talks about the creation of man. And it says like that: God formed the human of soil from the earth and breathed into his nostril a neshama, soul of life, and the human being became a living being. That's 3a. But look at how the animals were created in text number 3b, and tell me if you see a major difference. Text number 3b says, God says, let the earth bring forth living beings of differing species, cattle, creeping things, and beasts of the earth according to their species, and it was so. Can you identify the primary distinction between the way human beings were created, Adam was created on day number 6, and the way animals were created? So you should be able to see that man was created in 2 parts. Look what it says. God formed the human from afar, from dust. And then it says, and he breathed into him a breath of life. First came the body, and then came the soul. On the other hand, in text number 3b, when you talk about the creation of animals, it says, let the earth bring forth living beings. In other words, they were created as living beings. In other words, just like the formation of a human being, first came the body and then came the soul, so too with death. First the body leaves, the body is buried, the body goes under the ground. The body we sit shiver for, we mourn, but the soul lives on forever. As it says in Rabbi Sheish Tal's meditation, there's like the hardware, so to speak, and the software, right? The hardware is like the soil from the earth, and the software is the soul which was imparted into the body. Text number 3c in front of you. By the way, I don't want to get into the subject of pets and animals. You know, those of you who know me know that I'm a true dog lover. The dogs I grew up with in South Africa were 2 German Shepherds and 1 English Mastiff, Ringo, Jesse, Misty. I used to love these dogs. They were my life. They used to sleep in my room. I used to feed them. I mean, I love animals. In fact, Ringo and Misty and Jesse, actually, on Shabbat afternoon when we used to sing songs and eat cholent, you know, they used to sit and listen for hours and hours. And I always used to tell my family, Ringo, he has a soul of a tzaddik. Guy must be a righteous dog. I don't want to get into the kind of souls that animals and pets have. That's not the subject of our lesson today. If anybody does want to deal with it later on, we could. But just want to point that out. But in text number 3c, God did what he had done, what he had not done with any other creature. He blew into Adam with his Holy Spirit a neshama that is immortal and does not perish when the body does. In other words, if you think about it, death is only a sad thing for the people the soul leaves behind. And we'll deal with this more in coming lessons, but death is only very, very sad for the people the soul leaves behind. But for the soul itself, the soul is ecstatic. The soul is so happy to finally be rid of the body and be up there in Shemaim, in heaven, which is why, by the way, in Judaism we find that yes, we need to mourn, and yes, we don't deny the fact that there's a tragedy happening here, but we shouldn't mourn and say Kaddish, for example, more than 11 months. We do not mourn extensively. In fact, it says when you mourn too much, the soul is like, doesn't like that. We mourn for 11 months and it's a tragedy. And I don't want to, for 1 second, belittle that tragedy. It's a terrible, terrible, terrible tragedy. But at the same time, Judaism has, you know, the 7 days of Shiva, there's 30 days of mourning, and then afterwards there's 11 months of Kaddish, and that's it. You finish with the year. So let's get back to the screen here. So not my body, not my knowledge, intellect, emotions, or desires. I am my soul. Who am I? Who is Uriel Vigla? I am my soul. That's who I am. I'm not anybody else. I am my soul. And over here. Okay, so yeah, the human, God formed, this is what we just learned, on the left-hand side, God formed the human of soil from the earth and breathed into his nostrils the body formed from the earth, the shama, and the soul was inserted in the body, and the animals as I pointed you in front of you in the text, but you see that in front of you on the screen. The soul does not perish when the body dies, when the body does or dies. That's what we just explained. And the soul is in the body is like a stranger on foreign soil. And this we're going to elaborate on right now. By the way, again, I know the question always comes up whenever I discuss this topic, what's with the soul of non-Jews? I don't want to just get into it now, but for our purposes, yes. Non-Jewish people, we're talking about them as well as Jews. Okay. I want to show you now just a video which will explain exactly what we're about to talk about. Okay, so this video is a song by a guy called a composer by the name of A.B. Rottenberg. And when you listen to the soul, just bear in mind that whenever he says the word neshamele, so neshamele refers to the soul, and whenever he says the word malachal means angel. So just for the purposes of this, just remember malachal is an angel, and neshamele is a soul. Now, what he's discussing in the lyrics of the song is something very, very deep, which we're gonna delve into now. So pay careful attention to the song. Let me just make sure I'm sharing it properly with the sound, like Dan taught me to. And
it's Bob and Rudy's granddaughter. She's interviewing the person.
It's who? Who? Oh, okay, got it. Here we go.
Come with me, little Neshamala. Let me hold you in my hands, and we'll fly away, you and I together, to a place down on the land. Don't shy away, do as you're told. There's a little child waiting to be born today. You're to be his spark, his soul. So much pain and evil upon the earth below. Let me stay up in heaven where it's safe and I'll be pure. Please don't make me go away. Can't you see I'm so afraid? Come with me, it's time you faced your destiny. We fly beneath the clouds, now I will show you there is so much you can be. Over there, someone's learning love. There's another deep prayer. I will stay here if you answer me. It's all I need to know. You must promise
Okay, sorry about that. Did the video end? Okay. Here we go. I'm sorry about that. Okay. So so just to sharpen this point over here is the following. The Alter Rebbe, the founder of the Chabad movement, was once sitting with his grandson on his lap, and his grandson was stroking his beard saying, hi Zaidi, grandfather, hi Zaidi. And the Alter Rebbe looked at him and he said to him, that's not Zaidi. That's Zaidi's beard. You're touching my beard. That's Zaidi's beard. So the guy went, the grandchild who was then like 6 years old, he went and he touched his head. This is Zaidi. This is grandfather. And he said, no, that's grandfather's head. So he touched his hand. He said, this is grandfather's. No, that's grandfather's hand. So the child was a smart child. He went out of the room and then he shouted, Zaidi. And Zaidi turned around. What's wrong? He said, that's Zaidi. In other words, who am I? Am I my hand? Am I my head? Am I my eyes? Am I my nose? Who am I? I am my soul. That's who I am deep, deep, deep inside of me. Rabbi Zusha from Anatophobia, his students once saw him walking around his house, saying, where is Zusha? Where is Zusha? Zusha, where are you? Zusha, where are you? And his students are like, is this guy like senile? Why is he saying, where is Zusha? His Zusha's right here. So after 2 hours of seeing him walk back and forth, they went inside the house. And they said, Zusha, like you right here. Says, students, my dear students, he says, when I die after 120, you will see my body, you will see my eyes, you will see my nose, you will see my body. But you will be looking for Zusha. You will say, Zusha, I'm crying over your death. That's Zusha that you are looking for then, I'm looking for now. In other words, the true person is the soul. That is who we truly are. That is who we truly are. Now, a question just came in. I see, how can we say there's finality in death if the soul lives on forever? By the way, you can chat me during the thing questions, or you can just announce them, unmute yourself. But how can we say there's finality in death if the soul lives on forever? The finality is for the body. The body, the Torah mandates we need to mourn for. We need to mourn. The body is something that, it died, it passed away, and that's very sad. But the soul itself lives forever. The problem is we can't see this. If we could open up our eyes and see how happy the soul is, we actually wouldn't mourn so much, but we can't see that. But getting into the song that I just played for you, the song, I want to elaborate on the ideas of the song, and then afterwards you could look back at it if you want. I will play it again. But look at text number 4 to begin this thing. So text number 4 in front of you. It says like this. The Talmud says, 40 days before the conception of a child, God summons the angel in charge of souls and tells him, bring before me a certain soul that is named Paradise. Its name is such and such, and its appearance is such and such. This is possible because all the souls that are born in this world were created on the day the world was created and exist until the end of time. So the angel goes and brings the soul before God. The soul bows and prostrates itself before the Supreme King of Kings. God instructs the soul, please enter the seminal drop that is currently in the hands of the angel in charge of pregnancy. So please enter into the woman who's just about being impregnated by her husband. The soul protests, Master of the universe, I'm quite satisfied with the world I inhabited since the day you created me. I'm holy and pure. Who from your throne of glory, why do you wish to cause me to enter this putrid drop? In other words, the soul, when God asks the soul, please, I beg of you, I want you to descend into the human body, the soul says, I don't want to, please God, I don't want to. I'm so content, I'm so happy in paradise, basking in your glory, enjoying divine delicacies. It says a person can enjoy all the pleasures of this world. You can watch all the movies and the Broadway shows and private planes and yachts and houses in France and wherever you want. That doesn't equal 1 second of pleasure in the world to come. And the angels and the souls are enjoying that bliss. True pleasure. It says we don't even understand the meaning of the word pleasure. We like blind people. Imagine you have a blind man can't see. So you're trying to explain to him what it means to see. We are like blind. We don't see. We don't realize. We don't understand what true pleasure is. So the soul doesn't want to come down to this earth. And God doesn't give it a choice, as you saw in that song, little neshama, the neshama, the soul is forced to come down into this world for a mission, for a purpose, as we'll see soon, to light up the world, to make this world a better place, to make a home for God, etc. But I think text number 5 in front of you is the key to understanding this question. I'm just going to answer what somebody just texted me a question. Does this suggest reincarnation? The soul pre-exists the body. So I think one of the coming lessons is discussing reincarnation at length. I'm just going to say briefly the answer now. Yes, Judaism believes very strongly in reincarnation. Every single one of us has been reincarnated not once, multiple times. And the reason why we reincarnated is because we need to fulfill our mission and purpose in the world. We haven't yet finished to fulfill our mission, our purpose, and therefore we reincarnated again and again. The good news is that our souls are, you know, the Rebbe promised us we are the last generation of the exile and the first generation of Mashiach. So God willing, we won't have to be reincarnated. Okay? But I think text number 5 is the key to understanding a lot of this. And the following is what it says. This world is like a corridor before the world to come. Prepare yourself in the corridor so that you may enter the palace. The single moment of bliss in the world to come is greater than all of this world. So the Kabbalah explains this world is literally a corridor. We are here just for 70, 80 years. We are here for a mission, for a purpose. But that's it. Pretty much after we fulfilled our mission and our purpose, we're out of here. We're gone. And therefore, this world is like, you know, you're going from a corridor and then you're going into the palace. The palace is the future world. This world is just a corridor. It's a very temporary place. We're here only 70, 80, 90, 100 years, and that's it. We are out of here afterwards. I'm just going to share the PowerPoint here a second. Okay, so in front of you. Okay, well, we learned the soul and the body is like a stranger on foreign soil. This is what we learned. Just to recap, this real me is my soul, not my body. The real me, the soul, is eternal, so I am eternal. The real eternal me is unaffected by birth or death. In other words, essentially, the body is here for 80 years, but the soul is here eternally. The soul has existed from the time God existed, which is forever, and the soul will be here forever as well. So death is only for the body, but birth and death, the soul is not affected by these things. Okay, so figure 1.4, I think you have that in front of you as well. Hey, 1.4, the real me is my soul, not my body. The real me, the soul, is eternal. And the real eternal me is relatively unaffected by birth or death. Okay? But on the other hand, so let me ask you a question. So if that's the case, why, like, for example, if somebody comes with a gun to his head and says, you know, kill you or eat pork, for example, like, what do we care to die? I mean, if to die is actually eternal, why do we need to live here? Why does God want the soul to come down to this earth? If the soul lives forever and death is and the body that is just a momentary thing, it's a corridor. Why do we need to be here? So Judaism values life. Preservation of life precedes almost all of the mitzvot. There's only 3 mitzvot in the entire Torah that I need to kill myself and not transgress. But every other mitzvah or sin I need to do. In other words, Judaism preserves life. Judaism believes in life. We want life. We want you to live. We want us to live. We want to live as much as possible. In fact, as we just read in that source, 1 hour in this world is infinitely more. We can accomplish more than the entire paradise, the entire world to come. See this screen in front of you? The world is more precious than the world to come. And why is that? Because the soul can fulfill something in this world that there's no way to fulfill in paradise. There isn't a chance. There's no way to fulfill that in paradise, which is why God forces the soul to come down into this world. Basically, it's like, I'll give you an analogy of you know, you'll pay money to hear a person speak, not so much, but to hear a parrot speak, that's like, wow, parrot shows, I'll hear a parrot speak. To hear a parrot speaking is something innovative. A human being in this world, this dark, turbulent world, when we do mitzvot, when we create this world into a home for God, it gives God so much pleasure, like a parrot speaking. It's something innovative. It's something new. It's something that doesn't exist. So you have conflicted feelings, and this is the exact point that was discussed in that song. The song is about the conflicted feelings of the soul. On the one hand, the next world is much more pleasurable. On the other hand, this world is more important, and that is the crux of it. Look at text number 6. It's from Maimonides. It's in a student PDF in front of you. If a non-Jew attempts to force a Jew to violate one of the Torah's commandments at the pain of death, a Jew should violate the commandment rather than be killed, because the Torah states concerning the mitzvot, a person shall do them and live by them. One should live by them and not die by because of them, because life takes precedence over everything else. So that's why if you look at text number 7, God hurries to reassure the descending soul, right? The descending soul, so I don't want to go down to this universe. The world to which I am bringing you will prove more beneficial than the one you presently inhabit. Indeed, I formed you exclusively for the purpose of creating mortal life from this particular drop of seed. With that, God forcibly installs the soul. In other words, God tells you, you'll be able to jump so high, you'll be able to reach such a high level by doing a mitzvah in this world. And that's why in text number 8 in Ethics of Our Fathers, it says, a single moment of repentance and of good deeds in this world is greater than all the world to come. It's like, imagine you like, I mean, I don't like this, but imagine you like going bungee jumping, right? So you have this fear, you don't really want to do it, but you have this tremendous thrill, so to speak, by doing it. So the soul, doesn't want to jump into this world. It's scared, it's afraid, what's going to be? I'm happy where I am in my comfort zone. And then God kind of throws it into this world that by being able to accomplish so much, you put on tefillin, you help a person, you call somebody, you visit somebody who's ill, you give charity, you light Shabbat candles, you can accomplish much, much greater feats and heights than the soul could do without this. So, in essence, we have the resolution to Anatophobia, the fear of death. How does Judaism deal with the fear of death? Because death is not the end. We value life more than anything, but death is not the end. That is the actual resolution for the fear of death. In fact, this is, I'm saying this was in front of you. Let me just get there. Hold on a second. Hold on. Just trying to figure out what I'm saying. Okay. Text number 10 in the student book in front of you. Again, this is the conflict that was in that song. Against your will, you are formed. And against your will, you are born, right? The soul does not want to come down to this earth. Every single one of us did not want to come down. And against your will, you live, and against your will, you die, right? We don't want to live. We don't want to be born. But once we are here in this world, we don't want to leave. Every one of us wants to live healthy, long, productive lives. We don't want to leave this world. But we didn't want to come into this world to begin with. So you see the contradiction, and that contradiction is what's displayed in that song by A.B. Rothenberg. Right, imagine you're starting a new job. So you're very apprehensive about starting the new job, right? The new job has new perks, new salary, new challenges. So you're very apprehensive. But once you start it, you kind of love it, right? You'll be nervous, but you want to do that challenge. Skydiving or bungee jumping, same idea, same example. So figure 1.5, you should have it also in front of you. Death is not the end. Nevertheless, we value life more than anything else. Okay. This story in front of you, the picture in front of you, is about the previous Chabad Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson. So he conducted a single-handed revolution against the Russians. And he was captured. He went to a prison called Sperlinka prison, which was a terrible, terrible, terrible prison. They actually tortured him. He ended up, thank God, leaving Russia, coming to America. In fact, when he came to America, it was 9th of Adar in 1941, and the first statement he made is, America is not different, because people told him, here in America, you can't keep Shabbat, you can't do mitzvot, and he said, I'm going to bring Torah and mitzvot to America. But in his interrogators basically tried to make him afraid of death. That's what they tried to do to him. They tried to really make him afraid of death, and they tried to threaten him with a revolver. And look at text number 11 in front of you in the student book. It says, he writes this in his own words. He says, I arrived for interrogation at the offices of the Soviet GPU. However, in keeping with my principles, I was not very cooperative. One of the interrogators raised a revolver that sat on the desk before him. He looked me in the eye and mockingly said, this small toy has incredible powers. It causes principles to melt away. Open mouths. It opens the mouth. Under its spell, even mutes have become talkative. By the way, the person who interrogated him was actually Jewish people. Those are the ones who interrogated him. I responded, this is what he writes, I responded, you are quite mistaken. That toy only has an effect on faint heart with non-believers, those with one world and multiple gods. We, on the other hand, have one God and two worlds. As such, I don't panic at the sight of your toy. It has no effect on me whatsoever. This is the response to the fear of death. And in the screen in front of you, in the screen, we have one God and two worlds. As such, I don't panic at the sight of your toy. It has no effect on me whatsoever. In other words, a Jew knows. Yes, I'm afraid of death. By the way, this is how I deal with it myself. Yes, I'm afraid of death. I'm terribly afraid of death. I want to live. I want to see my children. I want to see my family. I want to see my community and my friends. I love living. But at the same time, I do not fear it. It doesn't have a grasp on me. I don't have anxiety. I'm not anxious from death. Why? Because death is not final. Death, there's two worlds, right? There's one God, then there's two worlds. So there's this world, the world to come, and the soul, which is the true me, lives forever and ever. Okay? Again, if there's any questions, please stop me in the middle, but let's go to text number 12 in the student book in front of you. So this is all very nice, right? So we shouldn't fear death and everything's wonderful, but we'll read about a sage, one of the greatest Torah scholars who was afraid, who was crying before he died, right? And this Torah scholar knows about the two worlds. So why was he crying? So let's see, the Talmud in Ketubot says, text number 12, a fascinating story. When Rabbi Yehuda the Nasi fell ill, Rabbi Yehuda was the one who compiled the Mishnah. It was Rabbi Yehuda's time, who lived in the times of the Romans, right? His friend was Antininus, one of the Romans. But when he lay on his deathbed, Rabbi Chia entered and found him weeping. He was crying. My master exclaimed, Rabbi Chia, why do you weep? Right? It's on his deathbed. Why are you crying? Why are you crying? Right? Because we learned that death is, death is not final. You live forever. Your soul is going to go to paradise and live forever. Was it not taught if one dies smiling, it is a good sign for him, while weeping, it is a bad sign for him? So Rabbi Yehuda replied, I weep because of my inability to study the Torah and observe the commandments after death. In other words, it wasn't because he was afraid of death. It wasn't because he had this Anatophobia, this fear of finality, but he wept because the opportunity to study Torah and observe mitzvot, that opportunity to connect to God in a deep and meaningful way, doesn't exist anymore. It's like heaven can be compared to an incredible retirement resort. So imagine you work your whole life, right? You make millions and millions and millions of dollars. You work and you work and you work. And at the end of the day, you go to this amazing retirement resort where nothing is expected and everything is provided. You will never need to cook another meal. You can play golf as much as you want. You don't have to plan another day. You don't have to clean another mess. It sounds like a great place. This is heaven, but nobody wants to rush into this retirement home, because until you enter the retirement home, you are self-sufficient. You can do things on your own. But once you go to the retirement home, you are kind of dependent on other people. But the point is, from this point forward, you will be a taker, not a giver. As long as you're alive in a body, you're a giver. You can give to society, give. But once you die, you are no longer a giver, you are a taker. And I want to just show you, there was a beautiful picture recently of Sheldon Adelson, who passed away. So this picture right in front of you on the screen was all over the news. This is Sheldon Adelson, died recently at the age of 87 years old. He was an amazing philanthropist, probably the Moses Montefiore of our generation, like an amazing guy. But look at the funeral. This is the way he died and passed away, nobody there. You take nothing to your grave but the Torah and mitzvot that you have observed throughout your life. We do not take anything to the grave. Now, this person had tremendous mitzvot in his life. He did amazing good things, and the money that he gave away was incredible. But at the end of the day, what do you take to the grave? You're only taking the Torah and the mitzvot that you have done. You take nothing else to the grave. Okay, so back over here for a second to this screen. Okay. So this text in front of us now refers to text number 13 in the student book in front of you. Okay. So the student book, it says like this. The Talmud in Tractate Brachot says, after their demise, after they pass away, righteous people are referred to as being alive. Now let's understand this. What does it mean? What does it mean that righteous people are referred to as alive? Now, sometimes we say about our great aunt, you know, she lives on inside of us. She's alive. She lives on. We mean to say that, you know, we will follow in her footsteps. But that goes for every person. Every person, you want to follow in his or her footsteps. You want to be like them. You want to emulate them. So what does the Talmud mean when it says that righteous people are referred to after their death as being alive? And here the question is, what is your life? And let me explain the question. Who am I? We already answered. Who am I? We said I have a body and I have a soul. We proved it from the Torah source that there's a body was created and then the soul. But what is the focus of your life? What makes you alive? And let me explain the question. We all have a body and a soul, as we learned. The body wants instant gratification. The body pursues material pursuits. The body loves vacations and movies and Broadway shows, and the body loves and enjoys earning dollar bills, for example. Right? When you earn money, and we all need money, when you earn money, so you can go on another vacation, you can buy another house, you can buy another car, you can pay for your bills and items. Money is amazing. What does the soul want? The soul is desperate and yearns to do a mitzvah. The soul wants to connect to God. The soul, just like the body needs to eat, right? The body needs breakfast, lunch, and supper. If you don't give the body breakfast, lunch, and supper and feed it and drink, the body's going to be starving. The soul also needs food. And the food for the soul is when you do a mitzvah. Why is it that you have such gratification when you give a poor man money, when you call somebody and say, how you doing? And the person says, you made my day. Why do we feel so great? Because that's nourishing the soul. Just like the body needs nourishment, the soul yearns, and is desperate for nourishment as well. So the food for the soul is when you learn Torah. What we're doing right now is feeding the soul. Right now we are feeding the soul. The soul is desperate and craves on tefillin, to give charity, to light Shabbat candles, because that's food for the soul. But the question is, what is the focus of your life? Is the focus of your life the body pursuits or the soul pursuits? In other words, a righteous person, the focus of his life is the soul. So that's why, going back to the Talmud says, after they pass away, righteous people are referred to as being alive, because the soul part of their existence continues even after they die. Who died? The body part died. The materialism pursuit died. But they were never into that to begin with. Their whole focus was the soul. Their whole focus was, how can I make this world a better place? That didn't die. After they pass away, their soul continues its mission in a different format, in a different way. But if your focus is materialism, what can I acquire? More and more and more can I acquire? Then yeah, that part of you will die, yes. The soul part of you won't die, but what is the focus? So look at text number 14 in front of you in the student book. The life of the righteous person is not corporeal, but spiritual, consisting of faith, reverence, love of God. This reality is reflected in the following passages. Of faith, it is stated that tzaddik lives by his faith. Of reverence, it is stated, reverence of God produces life. Of love, it is stated, he who pursues charity and kindness will find life, and kindness is rooted in love. So let's just show you. So that's what we learned over here. The life aspect, spiritual identity, is immortal. It lives on forever. The death aspect, physical pursuits. So whatever physical pursuits and aspirations you had, yes, that dies. You want another building, another building, another building, yeah, that's going to die. I'm sorry, that's going to die. But your spiritual identity, that lives on forever. Okay, and there's a beautiful, I watched this video before. I really want to share, want everybody to focus on this. This is such a beautiful, beautiful video done by, yeah, here we go, just like you. Okay, watch this video. It's absolutely beautiful. Here we go.
Why wait to celebrate? Bright lights in city streets.
Eighth Day is a popular Hasidic rock band.
Why wait to celebrate?
One of their hits was inspired by a powerful episode in the life of the second leader of the Hasidic movement, Rabbi Dovber of Mezerich.
A student goes to visit a sage, and the sage has nothing in his house. And he says, "Where's your couches? Where's your chandelier?" And he says back to the student, "Where's all your stuff? You just have a suitcase." And the student responds, "But I'm just passing through." And that's when the sage says, "Aha, I'm just like you. I'm also just passing through."
To his student's assertion, Rabbi Dovber responded with a transformative insight.
That's when he said, "I'm just like you. I'm just passing through, just like you. My heart wants to feel something that's real, and my mind hopes to find treasures of another kind. And if you had my eyes, you'd see a palace for you and me."
This world is temporary,
where people spend most of their life collecting stuff. And the sage tells them, "I'm actually just like you. I also collect stuff. It's just not that type of stuff, not leather couches and chandeliers. I collect treasures of another kind."
You know, he stays focused on that higher goal.
Rabbi Dovber taught his students that this world's glitter is a distraction that expires when the journey of corporeality chugs to an abrupt end. Better to invest in treasures of a kind that will benefit the soul in its eternal destination.
I'm just like you. I'm just passing through, just like you. My heart wants to feel something that's real, and my mind hopes to find treasures of another kind. And if you had my eyes, you'd see a palace for you and me. And my heart wants to feel something that's real, and my mind hopes to find treasures of another kind. And if you had my eyes, you'd see a palace for you and me. A palace for you and me.
Okay, like that. Oh, hold on. Okay, like that. By the way, anytime anybody has any questions, please stop me in the middle. Okay, let me put the PowerPoint back on. Okay, okay. Okay. So, I mean, I can tell you just as an example from my own personal life. You know, I'm a Chabad rabbi, right? So we have a shul, we have a preschool, we have all these things. I can tell you that I get personal pleasure, like when I get to do what's called a mitzvah, right? So when I get to put on tefillin with somebody, I get to wrap somebody with tefillin, especially let's say if the guy never put on tefillin in his life. I feel it's like this special feeling inside of me. I feel so accomplished. I feel so good. When just recently somebody needed money because they literally, didn't have food on the table, and we sent them a check from our charity fund, Hananya Crisis Fund. We sent them a check. It felt so good to get a message back, Rabbi, thank you so much for this beautiful, food, literally, that you put on our table. So when we do these kind of mitzvot, we feel so good. It feels so invigorating, so good, because on a daily basis, we grapple all day long. On the one hand, we have to make a living. God put us in this world to make a living. to be able to provide for our families. So we need to go after that dollar bill. We need to provide for our families. We need a vacation. We need a car. You know, we need all these things. But those are physical, material pursuits, which are part of life. But on the other hand, we need to pursue the soul, the spiritual things, which give us infinitely more pleasure than that brand new car that we're buying. And this is the contradiction that I showed you in that A.B. Rothenberg's video a while ago, in the beginning of the lesson. That it's the paradox of the soul. The soul, on the one hand, initially doesn't want to come to this world. It's like this new skydiver. I'm so apprehensive, I'm so nervous about skydiving, about bungee jumping. I don't want to do it. But on the other hand, once the soul is here, it doesn't want to leave. Once the soul is here, it sees how powerful, how good, how much it can accomplish in this world. Look at text number 15 in the student book, in the text in front of you. The Torah says in Parshat Re'eh, "Behold, I have set before you today life and goodness and death and evil. Choose life." So the explanation is the term life in this verse does not refer to corporeal life, nor does death refer to the result of the soul's departure, for which simpletons need to be instructed to choose life. The Torah says, "I place in front of you life and death, please choose life." Now, obviously, the Torah is not saying the choice between committing suicide and living and please choose life, because it's obvious, we don't need that. Rather, look inside. Each creation, while alive and fully existent, contains both life and death. The physicality of the object is intrinsically lifeless. It is in a constant state of decline and deterioration. We observe this decline in every physical object as well as in ourselves. Our physical capabilities and powers weaken with time. By contrast, the spiritual and divine within each thing is alive, eternal, and not subject to destruction or deterioration, God forbid. Think of a meal that you eat. If you eat a steak in a nice restaurant, right, post-COVID, or soon, if the may allows, right? So you could eat that steak and you want to indulge and you want to enjoy it. That's a material pursuit. That material pursuit will die. If your pleasure is in fine wines and fine art, and that is all you are focused on, that will die. But if you want to eat so that you can stay alive and healthy, and you also want to enjoy it, there's no problem with enjoying it, but that part will live forever. To answer this question here on the chat, what happens to evil, non-righteous souls upon death? Do Jews believe in a form of hell? Okay, so I'm going to answer that question. Gehenna, again, I know hell, when you say hell, it sounds like a Christian concept or a non-Jewish concept. Hell is a very, very Jewish concept. Judaism believes in hell. It's called Gehenna. But it basically fits in line with what I've been discussing the whole time. We say Kaddish after a person passes away for 11 months. We do not say Kaddish more than 11 months. And when people ask me, Rabbi, hey, I really like the Kaddish. I've gotten used to praying 3 times a day. I want to continue. The answer is no, you cannot. Why? Because even the worst wicked Jew has a beautiful and pure soul. And that soul has lived before the 70, 80 years of sin. It's lived forever, and it will live forever. So 70, 80 years, like one dot, one stain. And it needs to go to Gehenna, to hell, in order to purify the soul. So think of a white shirt that has a black stain on it. I need to put it in the washing machine and clean it in order that it's going to be white again. So the soul is like a white like snow, and it's got a stain on it from that 70, 80 years of sin, and I need to put it in a washing machine called hell, purgatory, fires of hell, whatever happens there, as explained in the Kabbalah, to cleanse it. But remember, the soul, deep, deep inside every single one of us, we are righteous people, we are good people. The fact that we seem selfish and unkind is because we haven't delved and dug deep, deep, deep into us. By the way, I just want to mention cremation, for example. This is one of the reasons why Judaism is so opposed to cremation. That cremation is something that I will do anything to save a Jew from cremation. It's terrible. Why is cremation so terrible? Because the soul lives on forever. And when a person burns his or her body, the soul feels the pain. It's torture for the soul. It's like the soul feels like it is being burnt. The Torah says, I created you from dust, ve'el afar tashuv, and you return to the dust, not to be burnt, but to the dust. I know my brother in Israel, I've said this story many times, he just had a patient, he's a hand surgeon, he just had a patient come to him, 85 years old. Long story, the guy saw he lived in Europe, And when he was a child of 11 or 12 years old, he saw his grandfather taken from a synagogue in Poland and being shot by the Nazis with tefillin on his head. And therefore, he never wanted to put on tefillin. And he said, not only that, but I'm going to be cremated. My brother said, I'll pay for you to undo the cremation. I'll do everything. Anyway, the bottom line is my brother was a hand surgeon, put the time, energy, effort to convince this person not to do the cremation. And that's what happened. The guy signed that he'll be buried. But the point of here is like this. What is your life? If your life involves around materialism, and even when you do those materialistic pursuits, it is for materialism, that will end after 70, 80, 90, 100 years. But if your focus on materialism is for the spirituality that you can gain out of it. For example, I want to make $100, I can give $10 to charity. For example, I want to eat so that I can be healthy and serve God. I want to go running. I want to go jogging. I want to go on a Peloton for 2 hours a day so that I can be healthy, so I can serve God and live and fulfill my mission. Then that's great. That doesn't die. That part lives on forever and ever. And that's how we attain immortality. That's how we do not die. The part of us that dies is the physical, is the material, is the mundane, and that's how we don't fear death. Jews, we do not fear death. It's COVID-19, there's a pandemic, but we are not afraid. We're not afraid because the soul inside of us lives forever and ever. Before I take more questions, I want to show you. Okay, so if death scares you, contemplate the eternality of the soul, eternality of the soul, do eternal things. Right? If death scares you, do a mitzvah. Well, my suggestion would be every single day, do something for somebody else. Do something that's not for yourself, right? The body wants, it's all about self-gratification, instant gratification for myself. Do something for somebody else. That is an eternal thing. And it doesn't exist a human being who cannot give something of your talents, of your resources to somebody else. Okay, let me just play this, the key points video. I'm going to play it here, 1 second. Okay, watch this video, which is a recap of what we learned today.
Lesson 1. Demystifying Death. 1. The awareness of our mortality and the resulting natural fear of death influence many elements of our psyche, behavior, and life choices. Our perspective on death influences multiple areas of our lives. 2. The neshama, human soul, the true essence of the human being, is eternal. It precedes the body and continues to exist after the body is gone. While still in heaven, it does not desire to descend into a body, and when the time of death arrives, it resumes its native spiritual state. 3. The fact that the briefest spiritual experience of the next world is more pleasurable than all of this world does not diminish the reality that even a brief stay in this world is more important than all of the next. Therefore, Jewish law gives precedence to preserving life over nearly every mitzvah. 4. This perspective allows us to appreciate and value life without fear of death. 5. While our corporeal needs and endeavors die with the body, our soul-focused aspirations and actions live on eternally. Thus, when we live and identify with eternal values, our current life continues even after the body's demise.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of today's lesson. I want to answer any questions, please. If anybody has any questions, please unmute yourselves, ask questions. But we'll be here for exactly 6 Tuesdays. I put a Google Calendar reminder in your calendar for everyone. If you want to, I'm not going to have the student PDF. JLI doesn't provide me the student one, but if you want to buy it, I send you the link so you can have it. They order it, ship it in 2 days' time. So if you want to get it, just order it. It's not necessary. It's not an absolute must. You don't need it. Any questions? Bevakasha.
Rabbi, this is Michael. Does your explanation of the soul, I asked the question about a non-righteous soul, and you explain our Jewish version of hell, and you explain some form of purification. Other religions have some rites and rituals, I believe, purification. in the present world, whether it's Christianity with confession and so forth and so on. Is there any understanding of the process of purification in our Jewish conception of well, I'll call it hell. I know we don't refer to it as hell.
Are you talking about process of purification, like in terms of the burial and the para process, or you
No.
talking about purification in hell? You mean?
Yeah, for the soul
Okay.
to enable it to regain
Okay.
presence in
Okay, man. I didn't want to talk about this, but now that we have an open conversation, let's talk about it. So some of the things that are described as cleansing methods, the Kabbalah, the Zohar goes into length. It says, there's one angel which takes the soul from one end of the earth and like plays soccer, football, throws the soul to the other side, to the other angel who catches it, and the other one throws it back. Throws it here, throws it back. That's one description of what happens. Another description is it says that we can't place our finger on a fire, on a flame, because it's so hot. It says the fire of purgatory, of hell, is 60 times hotter than the flame over here. It also says we had a guy like Job, like Eov, who suffered everything that there is to suffer in this world. So remember, Job was a person who, think of any torture that could possibly happen in this world, Eov suffered it. And it says that we don't even know the meaning of the word suffering. 1 second of suffering, of punishment in the world to come in hell is greater punishment than any punishment that Eov ever experienced. Just like it says 70 years of pleasure in this world. We don't even understand what pleasure is, because 1 second of pleasure in the world to come is infinitely more pleasurable than any other pleasure. Same thing is with hell, that we don't know the meaning of the word punishment. But again, it's not punishment, it's cleansing. And it's something we should not fear at all. We shouldn't be afraid of it. God loves us. God treats us like an only child. He loves us. And therefore, we don't focus on the actual details of the purgatory of hell. We don't focus on it at all. As far as we're concerned, everybody goes to heaven and everybody's good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if anybody wants to text me or email me or call me, I'm free. You know my number always. With that, have a good evening, everybody. Have a good night. I hope you all enjoyed. And thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Rabbi.
Okay,
Thank
bye.
you.
Bye, Beto.